I want to come back again.
This is the hardest part right here. So when you get here, okay, that's the spot that Manson couldn't make it up any further. He had to stop right there. Well, we know his bus made it to the ranch because there's plenty of pictures with it at the ranch. Plus they reported it. It was at the ranch. And then there's been other times where people have taken pictures and they say, oh, the bus is at another spot. I see it. Here it is. It's not really the bus. That bus belonged to Emmett Harder. Ironically, he knew Manson. You know, they both knew each other. Emmett must have really liked something about Manson, because he too, on his claim, if you know where his claim is, I'm not going to tell you where his claim is, but he has a school bus on his claim. It has a heater in it, and chairs, and the Manson family bus, all it had in it was mattresses. So, and we got the pictures. You can count the windows in the bus. You can tell that they're not the same bus. So we're looking for the Manson family bus now. What happened to this Manson family bus? Because there's a lot of rumors on what happened to it. Said some miners took a dynamite and blew it up. That makes sense. You know, ain't got nothing else to do, drinking too many beers. You might blow it up. I might blow it up if I had dynamite. Why not? It makes sense, but the pieces should be everywhere then, right? There ain't no pieces nowhere there. Okay, then there was another story of where these miners cut it up in 3 pieces and they hauled it off and they dropped it in a mine down at the bottom of Guller Wash. Why would you waste a bunch of time, a bunch of acetylene torches, you know, all that stuff to cut it? Why would you do that? You wouldn't. So that didn't make any common sense to me either. Then there was another story of how it was drugged behind Myers Ranch, dropped in a hole back there. Well, we got the full story from, again, Kirk Barker's grandson. And here's what he told us. So as I explain some of this story to you, I'm going to show you the direction that they drug it out. Because they actually drug it out of there. And I'm going to show you where you can visit the bus later on. So, as we go, I'll show you pictures of some of the places that they had to drag this bus through. So they hooked it up to, I don't know what, if it was a piece of mining equipment or another truck. And they started dragging it out of there. And the reason he said that they even wanted it out of there is because it became an eyesore at that point, you know? He said every window in it was busted out. People were taking pieces off of it, and everybody that went with a gun shot a hole in it. So he said it was like Swiss cheese, no windows. It was just an eyesore at that point, you know? They had shot out everything they could shoot out. They've taken everything off of it that they could take off of it. It was just, it was now drawing attention. It was bringing people up into this valley that they didn't really want there anyway, you know? So they wanted to get rid of the bus. At the same time, the Bureau of Land Management, it's called, you know, BLM for short. It was around well before Black Lives Matter. But they control the property, the land out there. You know, they make sure that people were following the rules of the land. And the Bureau of Land Management came into the miners who owned a mine, open mine shaft at the very bottom of Guller Wash. And it was an open mine shaft, and it was really dangerous because it was like 200 feet straight down, just wide open. And it was big enough for this bus. So that's where the bus eventually ended up, you know. down at the bottom of this hill at Guller Wash. So when you're coming in to Death Valley, I mean, when you're coming in up the hill of Guller Wash to heading to Barker Ranch and to Death Valley, stop right there at the beginning. All you gotta do is go like a football field out, and you can't see the bus anymore because it fell 200 feet down into a hole. But, you know, also when they were taking the bus down, they were taking it down and they were driving it down on wheels at first, and then all of a sudden the wheels got yanked off. So there's a possibility that some of the frame of the bus might still be somewhere along that way, all the way down Guller Wash, because then they had to drag it on the roof. That's why you see a picture of it where it looks like it possibly could have been blown up. It wasn't blown up, it was just a rugged old ride down Guller Wash. And as we're showing these pictures, you can see this is a pretty rugged place to drive through. But it's also God's territory. It's a beautiful place to drive through. So, when they got it down there, in the little junk pile that it finally was, all they did is tilt it upward, boom, drop it down in the hole, fill the rest with dirt. They killed 2 birds with 1 stone with that bus. They wanted rid of it, and they needed to fill a hole right down there as you're coming up, right to the right. It's about a football field right in front of that opening of Guller Wash. That's where the bus went. So you could put a cross right there and say, the Manson family bus is buried here. And you can check it out when you're driving up through Guller Wash. They're good. It's gonna be a big drop right there though. Like a boss, man.
Yeah, dude. This truck, you can't stop. Can't stop this. Not a problem for the whole thing. Can't stop this truck. Can't stop it. Why didn't you should have videoed horizontal though, bro.
talking to, again, call him Chuck, Mal Barker's grandson, Kurt Barker's grandson. I wanted to ask him a question about the people that were running the new Ballarat ghost town, because to me it looked like, I don't know, just looking in from the outside, you'd think, wow, it's some kind of hostile takeover. They just done threw Rocky out. They got rid of the Bobby truck. It's not there anymore. I mean, they're cleaning the place up, don't get me wrong. It looks nice there now. It looks a lot nicer than it ever did when Rocky was there. And they're putting more equipment out that was, you know, familiar to the land itself, you know, things that were there. And the Bobby truck's just behind the building. They're not really going to get rid of it. They're actually doing the public a favor, to tell you the truth. Nobody tells the story like this. But out in the desert, again, I've talked about the Bureau of Land Management already, so now you know what it is. They take care of the land. And another thing that they do is they put up notices for people to stay out of places. Because at one point when I was out in Death Valley, the guest house at Barker Ranch, there's a dog that wants to be in the video. The guest house at Barker Ranch, it had a sign on it to stay out because it had hantavirus. Well, that comes from rats. It comes from rat piss laying on dust, and all you got to do is shake it up, and it can actually kill people. So, to keep people from dying, and it's also dangerous for the person that's cleaning this stuff up too. So you've got to be really careful when you're cleaning it up, or when you're around it, or when you're shaking the dust or scooting across the seat. So now you get it. Now you know why it's not there anymore. They don't want to kill you. And he said basically they're going to clean it up and bring it back, and I believe that, because you really need to clean it up at another spot besides where you couldn't just with visitor. You just can't do that. So now it probably should make more sense to everybody, because I thought, you know what, these people came in and hostily took this place over, which we're getting to that, because, you know, they didn't hostilely take this place over either. But now they're going to sell this Bobby truck. But that's not even the case at all. These people down there are the nicest people, and they actually, more than Rocky ever did, they own the place. So be nice to them, and don't steal from them when you're there, or anything like that. They're trying to do the best job that they possibly can down there, and they're really nice people. So again, as we're sitting there getting stoned off, we gave him a bunch of weed and put it in a pipe, and you know, I'm not smoking because I don't smoke weed anymore, but you know, he is, and he's happy to have some weed. Could you imagine being out in the middle of the desert and when's your next weed coming? But anyway, we gave him some weed too, and we're talking to the grandson about, you know, the people that I thought hostilely took over the Ballarat, but that wasn't the case. The reason that Rocky isn't there anymore is because Rocky, I don't know if anybody ever knew it before. I never put it in any videos before because I'm not some kind of narc or some kind of rat or some kind of somebody that wants to get somebody in trouble. I don't. But Rocky was causing the owners of that property headaches. I don't know if anybody knows, but it's already been blasted all over YouTube. That's basically why he got in trouble, because he had somebody, and then again, this is going to be a surprise to some people, I'm sure, but he had somebody film him outside the back of his trailer out in Ballarat at his moonshine still and showing him how to make moonshine. Yeah. And then he was selling it out of the store, along with those cold beers that everybody, you know, hey, cold beer, I got cold beer in there for $2. Yeah, Remember that? Yeah. He had warm moonshine in the back. So it kind of caused, because there's several people that own that place. And you can imagine, you don't want any trouble from any kind of that stuff, and then now he has put it on YouTube where he's got some guy out there in the back of his trailer filming a still. That's not cool. Never is it cool to advertise that stuff to the world. And he did, and that's basically the reason that He isn't there anymore. But they were kind, you know, the people there who owned the place. They pulled his trailer out, and you can still visit Rocky. And this is the funny thing. This is the really funny. This is the funny thing about Rocky. You can still visit him. He's right. I mean, as soon as you leave Ballarat and you're headed for Trona, right when you hit Trona, when you hit Trona, right there on the right-hand side, there's a big old sign that says Rocky's Place. And what's it got on it? Moon. A half moon smiling. Original characters out there in the world, and Rocky was one of them, and he didn't get hostily taken over or anything like that. It was pretty much his own making. And here's another story about Rocky. Him and his dad, they both ran the place out there, and the reason that they ran the place out there is because Rocky, one day he was supposed to go out and cut weeds for his dad, because his dad had a mine not far down from where Ballarat is. You can even visit it. They'll tell you how to get there. But Rocky was outside, and he was supposed to be, you know, go cut the weeds in the back. Well, Rocky, lazy, caught them on fire instead, burned them. Big old gust of wind came through the valley, headed right towards his land, house, property, everything. The only thing that they came out with was the clothes that they had on their back. And then when the people who owned the Ballarat store let them take over as caretakers, because they kind of felt sorry for him. But Rocky and his dad both were arrested up there at I think it's called Sunshine Canyon, because they didn't like four-wheel drive people coming through there. They didn't like tourists. So they would go out with buckets of grease and paintbrushes, and they'd paint the rocks with grease so that the four-wheel drives would just sit there and spin on them. And then they claimed, no, we didn't do that. Bureau of Land Management back again. They put cameras up, and they found out, yeah, you were. It was you and your dad were out there painting these rocks with grease. So they were characters, and you can learn a lot of stories out in the valley. All you gotta do is go out and talk to somebody. And this time, you know, did. And I learned out a few stories. I also asked him about his grandmother. What did she do with that album? Because man, if that thing's still laying around, I'll buy that off of you. Well, he said his grandmother loved the album. And her husband was like, are you gonna keep this thing? And she's like, yeah, I love it, you know? And I asked him about the hippies too, you know? She really liked them too, until it came up that, you know, they were murderers, and everybody, she was scared. But initially she loved the Manson Family. They were fine with her. And she loved the Beach Boys albums she had, but she finally sold it for $100 after they got in trouble. So that's what happened to that. It's long gone somewhere. Somebody owns it and they don't even know what they own. You know, it was like, oh wow, it's Beach Boys and whatever, but it was sold off by her for $100. So, spent some time in the valley, in the Death Valley, and learned a few new stories about a few new things. Met a few new people. It was really nice. Unplugged the telephone because the telephone don't really work out there. And brought home a souvenir of a dead mule's head. And who knows? Maybe a few other things. Like a moonshine bottle full of dirt from Barker Ranch to remember two of my favorite people out there. Until next time, and we come back to talk about, I don't know what else. I can talk about anything. Till we come back and talk about that. Hope you enjoyed the pictures of what it looks like going out of Galler Wash. I didn't want to take too many pictures of the place, but what I did, I pretty much showed you throughout here. And yeah, I gotta get out there sometime before ain't nothing left. Before the desert just reclaims all that stuff. And until next time, peace.